Okay, a short podcast today on calcium channel blockers. Calcium channel blockers are used by the medical professionals to abate hypertension and to control the rigidification or the contraction of the vessels and allow for a permanent state of, not permanent, but more dilation and better blood flow and the idea itself is good when it's done naturally, but the problem with some of these medications which are given is not only can you be sued, doctors can be sued for not using them, but there can also be problems. It's almost like you take a wrench somewhere and then like it stops something, and then over here like something else starts happening. So then you take another wrench and you're holding that in place, and then that's kind of stopping something. And then you got a while before something else starts bugging out. So, and I'm not saying that that might not be a proper practice at a given state of a given disease, but overall, low deficiency of magnesium and other factors of just typical nutrient deficiency and just being deficient in a few basic like vitamin K2 and vitamin D and magnesium, and understanding how to overcome those deficiencies because they're not easy. They're not just, I'll take some pills and we're all good. They don't work that way. You have to have much more, use your whole heart, mind, and soul basically to figure these things out. It's not just a given. And so it takes concentration, effort, the truth or whatever. And so these things can be negative in the sense that, there's a way to do this naturally. The calcium was the original magnesium is the original calcium channel blocker. It allows the natural process of calcium channel blocking, and its high levels, optimized like levels in the body and tissues, is going to allow the body to be able to add the magnesium where the calcium is where there's a hypercalcemia. So if you have too much calcium hitting into the cell walls, what happens? It becomes rigid. The cell becomes rigid. And so magnesium is no longer able to counterbalance that effect with the flexible nature of what it adds to that formula. Not only structurally, but even like structurally in the tissues, structurally in the flexibility. Even the teeth have magnesium and calcium. So calcium makes them brittle, but the magnesium makes them flexible. So the two together, you have strong teeth. So so that's, once you're at the level where you have this kind of rigidity coming in, then there's a lack of viscosity. And so the lack of viscosity comes through brittleness. I was reading the other day on electrocution. I was reading something about electricity, and I stumbled into an interesting fact about how, there's greater resistance and more shock whenever the water's, you're in water or there's something wet, your skin is wet. Okay, so that's kind of obvious. But then the second thing they said was, or if there's cracks in your skin. And so that's how it works. It's like the more that the cells can crack, the less viscous they are, the less permeable. The more permeable they are, because now they've got these cracks instead of viscosity, which allows for selective permeability. And so this is kind of a problem at the cellular level. And what 30% of the energy of the cell is trying to get calcium out. So there's a lot of things, from prostate cancer studies on, they study all these milk products, and they find out that people that eat more dairy products have more prostate cancer. But so this is all this calcium that's being shot into the system. But those same calcium products, because they're general industrial products, most of them, they're weak in vitamin D. They don't have enough vitamin D or magnesium in them anymore. Or those things are not being supplemented in the diet through the right types of foods, or, this notion has been lost. So when the vitamin D and the magnesium are out of the formula of the calcium intake, well, then here we go. We start calcifying everything, all the tissues, including the brain. And so cancer comes from these areas as well. So knowing how, it's a key feature in cell death. Once the cells start becoming rigid and dying to a certain degree, then there's the anarchic cells, and there's a problem detoxifying. The DNA and RNA aren't working. You can't use the DNA and RNA for repairs and transcription, and so that whole system gets broke. Magnesium helps stabilize that ATP, the way the cell produces energy. So it stabilizes that system. So when that system's not stable, then it can't. It's like when you're not stable, you're not going to try to. You can't take the time to release. You're just all in active mode, And so that state, that kind of pyruvic, what is it called? Pyruvic, I think it's pyruvic acid. That pyruvic acid state where the nerves are just, and there's no parasympathetic, there's no serotonin and GABA and all these things that magnesium helps to contribute to at high level, including serotonin. Like all these like relaxation and dilation, all of these other principles, the parasympathetic principles in the body get sacrificed for this calcium and sodium filling the cells and rigidifying everything. That cell level is also in our own stresses, how we contribute to that, our own fears, everything else contributes to that hardening. So there's a connection between everything that's living. I mean, when you take a cell out of the body and you analyze it, it's dead, right? But even if it's alive in its little petri dish or whatever, it's no longer a part of the body. So the only thing you can take it apart, you can see its mechanics in a way, even if it's alive there. But once it's in the body, and even when it's alive, it's no longer a mechanical thing. Even if it's in a petri dish, it's not a mechanical thing because we can look at its mechanics, but it's not a mechanical thing. It's adapting all the time. So there's all sorts of permutations happening that we can't calculate. I mean, we can use one DNA strand and use gain to function techniques to have that strand act in certain ways or start to change. But this one strand out of a bazillion. These permutations are happening all the time. So we're still at a very small level of controlling anything. And that's okay. So this calcium channel blocker, this is such a key feature of magnesium. If it's not one of the most key features, and part of it comes to its flexible structure. That's one of the key reasons why it helps calcium to come in there and be useful. It's not just blocking per se. It also is adding its own substance to that to allow the calcium to be useful in the cell. So it's like, to avoid oxidation. And so it's like a limiter, a buffer. It's helping bring the right amount in. And then the vitamin D, of course, is helping to aim that calcium into different areas of the body. So if we're short in vitamin D, the aim is off, and then we start aiming in the wrong places, and we got calcium deposits everywhere. And we have bone spurs, and we have calcification of arteries and brain and everything else. So magnesium is the limiting factor in all of these things. And I always recommend to people to get the right stuff, to not get cheap stuff for $1.50 a week that they have on the market. Get the $3 a week stuff, blue glass bottles only with no endocrine disruptors from Zechstein Inside logo. If it doesn't have the logo, it's not the real thing. There's plenty of people calling themselves Zechstein because there's no control on the word Zechstein. So it has to have the Zechstein Inside logo, or these are self-certified companies. 95% of the U.S. companies are doing this. And so to find the right thing, you have to go to the source. And this is in Holland, in a city called Vindam, where this natural salt pillow formation is. And so they stamp the label on the bottles, and so the trademark. So get the right stuff. No endocrine disruptors, never in plastic. This contributes. This mineral is way too ubiquitous in the body to mess with the plastic chelation and leaching and endocrine disruption and estrogen mimicking capacity of plastics. So even the most safe, BPS and BPA. I mean, BPA has been, okay, we got that one. That one's out, but now there's BPS, and there's BPS variants and different things. So we want to stay away from that. We want to get glass and go straight to the real thing. So come check us out at theheartoftradition.com.